What's going on, everybody? This is James Grandmaster Facts Boys, and you're here for another Facts Project podcast. Thank you for being here. Today, our very special guest, repeat guest, we have to talk about this once again, Sleep, which is now going into its final issue that's going to be released in March. Zander Cannon is here to talk with us about this spectacular book that I've happened to read from cover to cover. As a matter of fact, I got to give you credit because for it to be like this single issue, to follow things single issue wise all the way through, and having people that are always like, oh, I'll wait till the end and just do the trade paperback, you have left all of us in suspense.
Well, thank you very much. And thanks for having me. This is really great. It's funny because I feel like I get a lot of people, or I'll hear a lot of people talking about like, yeah, if you told me about that this book would have gotten this far without revealing much of anything, I would have been like, get this thing away from me.
Mm-hmm.
I did, and of course, I'm not out here to frustrate people.
Right.
Not much, anyway.
No. And the thing is, I was going to ask, like, do you feel like you've answered enough questions about this book?
Oh, no. I mean, like, I feel like that's when you need a strong ending. It's a horror movie. You got the final act. I mean, I think the last issue is basically the final act, because it's like all the other stuff has kind of been cleared away, and there's only just sort of like the revelations and the blood and the guts and so forth. So it's it was interesting. I mean, I intended to wrap it up with like a regular 22-page issue, and it got away from me. So it's going to be it's like 34 or so pages of story. So they had to bump it up to a 40-page signature instead of a 32, and I was all concerned about the costs, and they're like, oh, it's actually cheaper, and it's like, who knows how everything works these days. Like, printing's all screwy. So
would we just go to Costco and just get some paper at a buy rate?
Yeah, sure. I mean, maybe that's how they do it. Who knows? It's all kind of opaque to me.
Good. Good.
But
well, I'm sorry. The big thing about these latter issues, and even the totality of the book, you managed, like I said, to keep us in suspense for this long, and not many stories have the ability to do that, especially with the attention spans of a lot of folks. I mean, a lot of movies have done it. Blair Witch Project, you don't see the villain. It's
Sure.
there, but you just generally do not see it at all. Or like the movie Zodiac, about the Zodiac killer.
Oh yeah.
Killer's never caught. You see everybody going in throughout.
Very frustrating.
Very frustrating and very suspenseful, to where people think that they're on the verge of catching the killer, and it never happens in the entire movie. Are we to suspect, of course, within this finale, that obviously everybody's waiting for this reveal, but say when we get there, it's not exactly what everybody is expecting?
I mean, sure, probably. I mean, I think that it's hard for me to know exactly what people are expecting, because a lot of times people will have a reaction to it, and I'll be like, oh, I didn't even think about that. Like, someone was like, oh, is this all going to be like he's in a manufactured reality, or like an alternate universe? And I'm like, I never even crossed my mind, or someone's like, well, maybe it's not even him that's the killer. And I'm like, that's the whole premise of the thing. Like, so, there's a lot of people who are just taking stabs at it that I'm like,
right.
I hadn't even sort of imagined that I would have to like clarify that that's not the case.
Right.
But I mean, so the thing is, I mean, one of the things that I wanted to make sure, I didn't want to drag. I mean, this is a long issue, but I didn't want to drag out the conclusion. I wanted to have it be pretty tight. I also wanted to sort of let you go, like, there's a couple things that you're just going to have to kind of figure out, like they're not explicitly stated, because they're kind of not really part of the main thrust of the story. But like, there's a lot of details there that you can kind of look up and go like, oh, if I want to know the name of this, or if I want to know the exact details of that, I can kind of find it in the illustrations and stuff. I just didn't want I didn't want to spell it all. I didn't want to spell it all out. I feel like it's a very satisfying, blood-curdling ending, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But but I also didn't want it to be something where I'm holding people's hand for, for the 3 hour finale, you know.
Yeah. Now, outside of like every single issue, in between all of the destruction, all of the murders that have basically happened from issues 1 to issue 7, from an artist standpoint, did you feel like every time something happened, every time that he fell asleep, that you had to up the ante a little bit more?
Oh, for sure. And that was actually, it's like I had a pretty improvisational sort of approach to the comic, but those were the things that were sort of set in stone. Like what happens in between each issue is that like, okay, well after this one, you know, it, not even necessarily what happens, but like, well, this is the paired scenes of like this is how this one ends. He's in this place, like he's in jail, and then he wakes up in his own bed, and you're like, oh God, like
Right.
those are the things that were all kind of planned out, and then I could kind of hopefully get in the headspace of the character and kind of like I wanted to have, obviously this is well trodden territory, like
Hmm.
it's every werewolf story is basically like this. And so I kind of wanted to sort of take this type of story where there's missing chunks and it's like he's not like a like he's not like a brilliant protagonist, but
Yeah.
he's a pretty practical and sort of like rational protagonist. Like, it's like, okay, well, this didn't work and this didn't work. It's time to, it's time to go for the ultimate thing. And I mean, that was the whole trigger warning of the third issue. And it's like he attempts suicide because it's like, well, he'd kind of worked out everything else and there was time was running out. And you're like, that's so gruesome. But
Yeah,
it was something where you're like, well, I don't know. I didn't want that lingering in the background. I wanted to basically take it off the table as soon as possible.
yeah, it's true because what you basically just said, him trying to commit suicide, he also tried banishment miles and miles away. Ended up all the way back in town. What was it, 40 miles out? And then he ended up all
Right.
the way back in town.
Yeah. Right.
And
Or whatever. Yeah.
even outside of that, you come to have these particular instances to where you realize that Jonathan is kind of catching on to certain things. And I feel as
Mhm.
though within issue 7, inside of this, I guess 50
Yeah.
foot tall padded
Lab.
room, or
Yeah.
I wouldn't even say padded because you
Yeah.
see all the destruction that's happening throughout the room. Every time that the two scientists are coming in, was it Dr. Phillip? Is that his name?
Yeah. Yeah, I forget all these names as soon as I say them, so I hope I don't
Right,
blank.
right,
I hope I
right.
don't get them wrong.
But as they're giving him, I guess his sedatives, the pill and the water, he is choosing to spit the water down the drain.
Yeah,
It's almost like yeah, I'm catching on to this. No, so if it's my only means of escape is to turn
yeah,
to the thing that I fear the most, I have to
yeah,
start outwitting these guys.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think, I mean, in a way, I kind of I look at this story as sort of like, it's like the opposite of a redemption arc. It's sort of a corruption arc of this person who's a perfectly nice and good person
Absolutely.
at the beginning, and as he sort of like as sort of circumstances sort of push him around, he basically becomes more and more corrupt and starts making these terrible decisions uh without really changing his personality. I mean, he's still sort of the same person, but it's like it just is sort of like a worsening and worsening situation, and he becomes
Yeah.
a worse and worse person, you know.
And
uh
I think that's also like I guess the emotional crutch of this whole thing. Yes, he's this ultra positive person. So for this to happen to him is sad beyond belief. But better yet, you see kind of like the pattern that's starting to happen around the people that are being murdered. Like the Reverend. So obviously he's a ultra religious person. Probably his parents took him to church all the time. I mean, as a matter of fact, the first couple of issues he was going with Tabby, and of
yeah.
course he saw Hip that one time when he first went back, and all the while that's where they took salvation and sanctuary inside the church, and that's of course where a lot of things went wrong. So
Yeah.
the Reverend survived the car crash in the first encounter with the beast, and then dies at the hands of the beast in the church
Yeah.
the second time. And then, of course, there's Hip. Like there's just these correlation. Anybody that like has bullied him in the past or talked to him in a certain way just ends up not being here no longer.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think, and I think, I wanted a lot of, I mean, there's a lot of sort of deterministic things like that where it's just like, oh yeah, like if you see the clues, then it sort of means this. But I also wanted to sort of have the story be a little bit happenstance. It's
Okay.
like sometimes people are just in the way. Sometimes, like there, I wanted to sort of like have this character where it's like you couldn't really sort of like give any sort of rational reason for what's happening necessarily.
Hmm.
Or at least not one that doesn't have any exceptions. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I wanted to really make sure that it felt organic. I guess is their trick around a lot of stories where where if you're not careful or you don't give yourself much air in the story, then I think that sometimes you can kind of feel like you're kind of like on this teeny tiny little narrow path. And I kind of wanted to be like, well, I want this story to sort of feel like there's random chance stuff that happens as well. In addition to the choices that the characters make.
Oh, for
Does
sure.
that make any sense?
Yes, it does. I also felt like through issues 1 and 5, it was almost uncircumstantial that he was turning into the beast and all this destruction was happening. And I feel like within issues 6 and 7, he almost voluntarily did it. Like where you
Yeah,
see his eyes close to Hip
yeah.
once he finds out about Tabby and he's confronting him that time. Like, and then also voluntarily doing it again in the lab with the scientist where he realizes, oh shit, this dude's falling asleep in front of me.
Yeah, right, right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like if you've ever had like low blood pressure and stood up from the couch and like,
That was like
the tunnel vision.
that,
And I just thought that'd be really funny to see somebody on the other end of that tunnel vision going, "Oh crap."
that. Now, one thing I will ask: what was the scientist saying to him before he, like, pretty much said, "Oh shit"?
Gosh, I don't remember.
He was telling him about something in particular, and you saw the bubble like fade
Oh,
over top of it.
well, I don't think it was particularly important. I think it was
Okay,
just,
gotcha.
I think it was placeholder stuff, maybe a little bit. I don't know. I can't remember. Sometimes I'm cramming like little details into everything, and sometimes I'm like, they just need to say something.
Definitely.
Like comic book secrets revealed, right? Um, yeah, it's funny because I mean, this is when I originally pitched this project, it was going to be really sort of like I don't know what the word would be like. It was going to be more experimental, and it was going to be more about the mystery of it. And I was actually going to end it on issue 6, the way issue 6 ended. Actually, the way issue 6 ended before the little post credit scene.
Yes.
Where it was just like he just went and let himself get knocked out by this guy. I was going to set everything up a little bit differently. I was going to sort of like I was going to make, and I was going to have that ending be boom, the ending. Like he gets whacked in the face with a shovel, and that's it. The end. Roll credits. And which I think would, which I think, of course, the story would have to be different for that to even remotely work.
Right.
But I kind of liked the suddenness of it, like just how awful that would be. But no, we just have to keep going on. We just have to keep going
Yeah.
and making everybody's lives even more miserable.
I mean, well, obviously, and I do love the fact that you've created like a conspiracy corner for a lot of us that have driven ourselves bananas by reading all these issues and the letters that have basically been pouring in as well. Even outside of that, there is a small. Obviously, you've been putting all these subtle things throughout the story. One, of course, being the beginning of the one singular color, the color red,
Yeah,
that was throughout it's been throughout the entire book. But
yeah,
when you look at the cover for issue 6, and it goes from red into blue, like almost in this like drip stain.
Yeah.
and everything. So I was like, for one, now my mind's turning.
Right, right.
Here's Xander again. He's doing
He's doing
it.
it.
So the the bunker sequence where Tabby basically is leaving him into the bunker, and then it's almost like a safe space because of course he wakes up and he's like, "Oh, I'm still here. Cool. This
Yeah,
is perfect."
it worked
But
great.
also in the same breath, because that place was like laced red, and then you have the lab where it was all laced blue. It almost seemed like those two spots were in close proximity because you did leave the map out in issue 7, so where you realize that this lab is below the ground. What is wrong with this town?
Yeah, totally. I mean, yeah, this well they reported that Hip said it, this, it's because this town sucks. Which I kind of love that, like, like that they characters would have their own theories too.
Yes.
Like, but anyway, yeah, like I mean, it's funny. Well, like I always, when people sort of say like, oh, well, I think the blue means whatever, safety or redemption or this or this or this, and it's like,
Yeah.
nah, nah, it basically was just like, oh no, it's just like ultraviolet light to keep them awake. Like I wanted to make sure that I want to, generally speaking, be like, oh, this everything in this is sort of like is practical and not thematic. You know what I mean? Like if there's
Okay.
a secret, it's more like, okay, well, this pertains to an event,
Mm-hmm.
not this represents somebody's, you know, somebody's redemption or this or that. Like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I feel like you can get off the rails pretty quick if you start sort of I don't know, looking at things in too poetic and not concrete enough of a way,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. So yeah, I just wanted to. Anyway, I part of it is like I kind of want to do the David Lynch thing where it's like we don't need to talk about the project, or we don't need to talk about the story. The story is the talking. You know what I
The
mean?
story
Like,
is the talking.
you
And
know,
as a
but
as
but I can't resist. Like I love telling people about like,
yes.
oh, the process of making this, and this is kind of fun. It's neat to draw this. And like,
Even when you get into issue 7, like that scientist is actually like dropping like I don't even know if he's even dropping a hint to him. He's like, "Hey, you went to school with that girl, right?" And he's like, "What's that got to do with anything?" You know?
yeah,
But yet here you go putting Callie on the cover of issue 5. And it's
I
like
know. Who can figure it?
none
Everybody's
of,
got their own unhinged theories.
yeah.
Yeah, and those have been, well, like you said, like that was a really. I was kind of trying, when I put those into the first couple letters pages, I kind of had to like, I had to kind of recruit people and say, please, 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 just take a shot at it. Like it's
Yeah.
impossible to guess after issue 1 or whatever, but just take a shot at it because it was so much fun to have something else in the letters page besides just people saying, I really, I like this comic or I hate this comic, whatever they say. But like, it was really fun to sort of have there be sort of a side note thing and have it be like, have it be a little bit of a puzzle. I don't intend it to be a puzzle that you can necessarily, 100% solve, but that you can 100% solve like before a certain point. You know what I mean?
Right.
Um, but yeah, that was really fun to do. Um,
You are absolutely messing with us, man. It's like I feel like I have all the puzzle pieces, and as soon as I start putting it together, it's like Jesus Christ, this is not going to fit, and I tear the whole thing apart.
yeah,
So
I mean, a friend of mine went through. I mean, he went through every single panel, and he was just like, "Oh yeah, I think I figured it out." And I mean, he sent it in. I was like, pretty close. Like it's pretty close, like he had to take some logical leaps, and I was like, it's not that, but it's equivalent. It's an
right.
equivalent thing. There's nothing to say that it's not true. But um, yeah. But anyway, yeah. So it's interesting then to, I mean, to go from all the issues that everybody has seen,
Yeah.
with all the stylistic changes and all the different colors and stuff like that, to issue 8, which is basically done in a way that none of the other issues are done. Like
Oh my
it's
God.
all different styles, like 3 different art styles, like all kinds of which just from a practical standpoint is a huge pain in the neck. Like that's I still, I've sent in all this stuff, but I still need to do all the layers and colors and and this, and it's like keeping track of all that stuff is so exhausting. But I think it's going to pay off. I think it's going to be I think it's going to be a great issue. So
Well, here's like the big thing about that. So you're gonna get us again. Because
yeah.
now this finale is going to come in these 3 parts in these 3 particular different art styles. We're all going to start picking this thing apart, and I hope that don't anybody just like jump from page 1, go all the way to page 40, and try to just figure everything out. To be honest, do you feel a way about people calling the book in the beginning a slow burn?
Oh, it totally. I mean, yeah, I thought that was pretty generous, actually.
Good.
It was an agonizingly slow burn. Like and part of what was happening there too is that I was like, well, I'd set up these rules for myself, right? So like, he has to basically live a whole day
Yeah.
and then fall asleep until you can even really see the premise of the comic,
Hmm.
at all. And so, I mean, I really toyed with the idea of like, well, maybe there should be 2 chapters in the first issue. Maybe I should show a preview of the next issue, or like, a teaser. And I mean, finally, I just had to say, all right, well, I'm just going to just play it. I'm just going to play it like a mystery. I'm going to do all the red stuff, so that there's enough there that it's tantalizing or whatever, and hope that my art style and my storytelling style and my characters and with dialogue and stuff like that is compelling enough that you kind of go, oh, all right, well, maybe there's something happening here. And
Yeah.
I mean, I knew that it wasn't like scary. It wasn't a scary comic, and it wasn't like gripping, like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen next? Because you kind of don't know what sort of things happen in this story. And so I mean, I was really happy that people that people bought it at all, because it's like, I mean, I really was nervous when I put it out. I was like, this is not like a grab you by the throat and like thrill you to pieces kind of comic.
Right.
It's the slow burn. Hopefully people stick with it, and people have stuck with it mostly.
Absolutely. Nah, I definitely think that you've taken a grasp on this. That's pretty much why I think that you've kind of like expertly put the single issues in here to where it's drawn after cliffhanger, after like what is up with Jonathan? Because like for one, we're looking for the reveal, which
Mhm.
isn't happening. For two, we feel this empathy for Jonathan.
Yeah.
Like we do. It's like he did try to kill himself in issue 3, and you're figuring, oh, that's it. And in issue 4, he just wakes right back up. It's almost like he respawned in a video game or something like that.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
and even in certain instances, you're seeing, you almost feel like, okay, if he's banished, he's just going to go to the next town and cause more havoc. No, he ends right back into the town.
Right.
It's
Right. Right. Yeah.
it's almost like he did a whole Roadrunner thing and just ran right back into the town. And
Yeah, that's the part you don't see in between the issues, is the road kind of does that like wave, like
yeah,
in the
that
road
wave
runner.
and floats him right back into the town. That's probably why when he ended up in the gymnasium that you saw like the drag marks where he like skidded all the way back into the gym because he was running so fast.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly right. See, now that where was that unhinged theory when I needed it?
Exactly. I mean,
He's the road runner.
I figured if he was running that fast and he was probably like the sun was about to come back up, he was about to wake back up anyway, and then boom, he
Yeah,
just slides right into the gymnasium. Here's my
yeah.
other thing, because I've actually talked about this a couple times. He lives in this small town. What is the closest metropolis, and why haven't they called that the National Guard?
Well, there's a bit of that in the final issue, but yeah, like, well, it's based on the school that I went to college in, or the town that I went to college in, which is
Okay.
Grinnell, Iowa, which is basically it's right in the middle of Iowa. It's halfway between Des Moines, which is like 50 miles away, and Iowa City, where the University of Iowa is, and that's about 60 miles away. And so it was kind of like, I mean, especially in the 90s, it was pretty remote. Like, obviously, there's call people and stuff. But I wanted the feeling that like it's that it's that it's kind of outside of everybody else's sort of that if you wreck it, like help is coming, but it's not necessarily coming very fast. And also it's a horror story, so I don't know. Like you just have to you have to like accept some sort of like horror story tropes that like,
True.
oh, we're all alone here.
Now, it's say for instance, for the sake of argument, the way that you've crafted this thing expertly, I gotta say, and I know a lot of people have talked to you about
Absolutely.
this, about the fact of how you basically crafted this book. If it was adapted, like in any sort of fashion,
Yeah.
how at what type of like scale could this be? Could it be almost because of how we look at Jonathan and how we have an empathy for this without ever seeing the beast? You see him as this lowly, just humbled person,
hmm
obviously ultra religious and everything like that. Like how would you basically forecast this type of person to be shown on like a bigger screen, almost in a little bit of a live action? Is there anybody that you would compare him to that you obviously know?
I mean, well, like I've got sort of Hollywood agents and stuff like that who sort of shop this sort of stuff around, and I mean, you know, well, so what at one point they're like, oh yeah, we showed it to Tom Holland and Zendaya, and it's like, oh, did you now? Like, maybe
Did you?
that's cool. I mean, like what can I even say about that? It's like, yeah, that'd be cool, but like, but it's also, it's one of those things where it's like people say that sort of stuff all the time, and people
Yes.
even gets a couple steps further along all the time for nothing,
Mhm.
and then nothing happens. You know what I
Right.
mean? So, I mean, I do think that like I do think that it would be kind of appealing in that like this is the sort of thing that you could film for not very much money. You know what I mean? Like, you'd have to like get your rubble budget, to
Absolutely.
be, but like, but you could film it I feel like you could do a student film, of this at least from, until you got the funding to do the last couple big things. But, yeah, it's kind of funny to think about that stuff because, like in comics, even the most realistic comics are still drawn. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
whereas like animated movies, it's like, well, if they get to be a certain level of realism, you might as well just have them be, live action movies. Like
Yes.
there's a tipping point. Whereas I kind of like that comics can always kind of be in the realm of being cartoons,
Mhm.
and I think that that's kind of an interesting thing because then it doesn't make it very certain. Like, well, how would you do this?
Yeah.
And what is a black and white movie with red elements? How does that come across differently than a black and white comic with red elements? I don't know.
Correct.
I think that that's obviously that's somebody else's decisions, or that's somebody else's problem.
Yeah.
Even if I'm like, I can sit there and go, well, what do you think? And then somebody else can deal with the problem.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, being a comic artist, comic writer for as long as you have, how would you compare Sleep to your ultimate body of work?
Hmm. Well, I kind of divide I mean, I divide a lot of my work between sort of like, uh, about 15 years ago when Sleep came out, and sorry, not Sleep, Heck came
Yeah.
out, the graphic novel I did. That was sort of like a dividing point in my career where I sort of said, okay, well, these are going to be the books that I'm going to do as a solo artist, writer artist, and I wanted to sort of make sure that the writing, as much as I love doing comic book art, and as much as my art has improved over 30 years,
Yeah.
I wanted writing to be the focus. I wanted pacing to always be as impeccable, or at least close as I can make it to that.
Yeah.
I wanted the reveals and the endings especially to really be powerful. I wanted people to know that when they picked up a comic by me, that they weren't just kind of getting like a wander through Narnia or whatever. It's like, no, no, this is a story that is hopefully, that's pretty unique and pretty sort of like strong and held together. And so, yeah, I mean, I think of Sleep as being of a piece with Heck and Kaiju Max, even though it's not too similar to either one of them.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, I mean, as opposed to the Replacement God, which was my comic in the '90s, which is a little bit, it was a little bit loose, like it just kind of there was an ending in mind, but I kind of was just wandering around and kind of wasting time on it. Um, and and a lot of the other projects that I did where I was mainly just the artist or something like that. So I think of it as being part of my latter works, which I think of as being very, very story focused, very sort of like pacing focused, very ending focus.
So at the end of the day, this is the work that you've been wanting to do.
Yeah, and I've had this comic in mind for at least 20 years. You know, I mean, some version of it.
Right.
You know, I mean, I think that a lot of the sort of the things that really jump out about it, the black and white and the red and stuff like that, are later editions. But yeah, I'd been thinking about at least the idea of like the Jekyll and Hyde, aspect, and only seeing the Jekyll parts. Like
Right.
that had been part of it for basically the whole thing. So
Hey, that's excellent. Now, when we're talking about like you putting this together, of course, writing and doing the artwork for it, has it allowed you to actually even start other projects?
oh no, no, no. And in fact, the second I finished this, like the last panel of like blood and guts and intestines and stuff, I got to just start writing a young adult graphic novel, like a kid. I mean, it's going to be kind of a kid's fantasy story about a frog and or like no, a frog and a mouse that are friends. So I mean, yeah, and it's like I wish that I had been able to be working on that for the last like 4 months because it's due in 10 months or whatever, like
Right.
which not a lot of time if you want to do like 150 plus page graphic novel.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, so no, I haven't been able to do anything else, um, except for like, I mean, I actually, there were several things that sort of like popped up that kind of put me behind. I did some layouts for a DC comic. I did another chapter for a book that I did with my partner Kevin Cannon. That he's not related to me, but he and I have a studio. I've had a studio together for 20 years,
Hmm.
and he and I did a book 10 years ago about rhetoric. It's like a textbook for college students, and
Wow.
so they wanted to do another chapter on it. And so like all of a sudden I had to drop everything and like pencil and ink, whatever it was, 20 some pages. It put me way behind.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. So yeah, I don't have time to do any extra stuff, and I did do a bunch of extra stuff. So
Wow. Now is it the project that you're going to be working on directly after this? Is there already a name for this project that you're working on?
yeah, it's called Vermin Quest
Okay.
because it's like a rat, a toad, and a cockroach that are like the main characters. And it's a Lord of the Rings like quest, like they're the cat, an ancient wise cat, whatever, 15 years old, is telling them it needs to go get this treasure from somewhere, and it's this immense land, which is just like a reasonably sized farmhouse, that
Right.
they have to get across. So, yeah, I mean it's a little bit like the Rescuers, a little bit like the Borrowers, and a little bit like
I was
all that stuff. I mean,
about to say that. I was going to say the Rescuers, the Littles,
oh yeah,
which was
littles, yeah, yeah.
or the In-Betweeners.
Oh yeah, or the Mouse and the Motorcycle. I don't know if you ever
Yes.
read that. Yeah, yeah. I love that book. But anyway, yeah, like, and of course, I really like things where like animals, make clothes out of like recognizable stuff, and they sleep in matchboxes and they have like a giant button, or whatever. I don't know. That
That's
stuff
what
is
I
fun.
used to see from the Littles. I mean, I remember in the '80s those storylines, well, that cartoon series being like in that sort of aspect. They would hang
Yeah,
down from thread, climb down, like
totally.
that
Yeah.
type of things.
I mean, I don't know why I love that so much. I mean, I loved doing the opposite in Kaiju Max, where like all the stuff that they were doing was always like huge scale stuff,
Yeah.
like but I love doing that stuff where it's like, yeah, like they're sitting on a thread bobbin or like holding a button. I don't know. That stuff is
Yeah.
fun.
It's a world inside of a world. Now,
Yeah.
outside of 2026, like is it, outside of that particular project, what else do you see yourself doing in the future that you already see yourself aligned for?
Well, I've been promising. Well, it's like I have this project that is the same. It's like the same sort of aspect ratio, so to speak, of Heck. You know, like
Yeah.
it's a wide comic that's called Golden Wing, and that's I mean, it's not a very exciting premise because it's basically just all of my rejected DC pitches for all for every superhero I've ever loved. But it's you know it's about a Superman, like a Silver Age Superman level
Mhm.
superhero who loses his memory, and so then he and like the sort of ersatz Jimmy Olsen have to figure out his secret identity, and like and like stop this supervillain, and there's like kind of a fake Batman, and there's kind of a fake Wonder Woman, like there's kind of like all these characters that are kind of like very familiar, but
Mhm.
like like different powers and stuff like that, and it's very silly, and like there's a Lois Lane type character who's like super brassy, but she can't hold it together when she sees Golden Wing. She's just like, oh my God, he's so beautiful. And like, just
Oh.
like, and it's so frustrating because she's useless whenever he's around, but then like whenever she's like hyper competent whenever she's on her own. Anyway, just it's a bunch of like it's a little bit, it's a lot of like gags and sequences and stuff that's really fun, but there is an overarching story. It'll probably be like a 300 page, graphic novel, the way Heck was,
Wow.
um, and so, yeah, it's fun. I've drawn like 90 pages of it. Like there's 90 full color, finished pages
Yeah.
that I just kind of keep picking away at.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
sir, I gotta tell you, you've been look, as much as we don't get to dive deep into like most of the artists and writers world, the fact that you've been doing, for one, this and still having the opportunity to jump into graphic novels and a lot of young adult basically graphic novels that you're going to be working on in the future is the work share of a comic artist is beyond belief when I try to look at the totality of it. So I just got to give you kudos for that.
Well, I mean, not to get too serious for a minute, but like I think, like a million other people and a million other comic book artists, I got
Yeah.
ADHD out the wazoo. You know what I mean? And so it was always part of my sort of like sort of like what I thought about my self image was that I was lazy, that like, because it's like you get distracted and you don't finish the thing that you're supposed to finish, or you don't finish the boring thing that's not fun and all
Yeah.
this sort of stuff. And it was really only until, it was probably 15 years ago that, somebody was asking me, well, what'd you work on this year? I haven't seen much stuff from you. And I was, well, I did this, and this is, that didn't get released, or this is coming out next year, and that is, and like I have been with you,
Yeah.
and it's just like, oh,
A
you were
lot
kind
of
of
time has
realize,
gone by.
oh, I'm not lazy, but I needed to be set to the right stuff,
Yeah.
and I mean, there's something really sort of fun about the idea that I can be like, yeah, I mean, now that I'm 53 years old, I can sort of say like, yeah, I mean, I can do a project that is like a blood and guts, horror movie, and I can do one that's a satire about prison, and I can do like I can kind of follow my interests, and I can follow my great loves, and I can really put the work in. And I mean, it's like these things are not like things that you can knock out in a weekend. I mean, you
True.
know, Kaiju Max is 1,000 pages, like and I mean that took a while, and I think that it's kind of nice. I mean, I think it's really so lucky, so lucky that I could find something that I enjoy so much that I could put this kind of effort into it, and that people would see it. It's not just like stuff that just disappears into sketchbooks that nobody ever sees. I'm so lucky that I can find places to publish it and show people that like, yeah, this is sort of here's a fun little project. It doesn't have to be the greatest thing you've ever read. It can just be something that's neat.
Absolutely. And to be honest, like obviously this was my introduction to you
Hmm.
with sleep. So for those of us that basically got introduced to you through sleep and pretty much wanted to get to know the world of Zander Cannon outside of this, and to basically take a story that you said that you've basically been working on within your mind for about like 20 years, and now you got a whole legion of people that would be like, yo, I know a book that will drive you insane. And it was like, somebody's going to pass issue 1 to him. Be like, yo, what happens to this guy? Oh, you do? I got issue 2 right here.
Yeah, yeah. And it is, I mean, and it's so funny to think like this comic is kind of, I mean, like I said, it's like the recent comics that I've done, but it's also really different, you know, like it looks different, you know, it feels different. And so it's kind of funny to that like, oh, it's this sort of low key sort of horror book that I did that suddenly attracts a bunch of new people, as opposed to this sort of bright, super candy colored thing that I did for 7 years. You
Yeah,
know that I would have thought would have been the sort of the crowd pleaser of it, but it's like, well, I mean, it's just that's the way it happens sometimes, and I think that's pretty fascinating.
definitely. Now, without spoiling anything, is there anything that we can expect going into issue 8?
You know, justice. Perhaps there's a lot of blood and guts. That's pretty fun. I don't know. There's shooting guns. There's a lot of guns. There's there's a lot of like sad. Like I was drawing one page. Like I have a new studio mate who is a friend of mine for 30 years.
Okay.
But he's a new studio mate, and he and I were chit-chatting while I was inking this page, and I'm like, I gotta stop talking to you. I gotta either stop talking to you or stop drawing this page because it's bumming me out. Like
Mhm.
it's just such a sad page and such an awful page that I'm like, God, I don't want to like. It just was making my conversation with him, which was perfectly nice and perfectly pleasant, what
Right.
into this really. I was like, ugh, blah. Like, what have I done? What am I doing? You know. So, yeah, that's a hint of what you might get.
Oh man.
Maybe you'll feel the same way that I felt for like 7 hours while I inked it. But
Now,
luckily, you only feel it for just like a minute.
now you talked about the 3 art styles that we should expect in the finale. Are they also 3 different themes?
It's more like three different sort of like perceptions.
Okay.
So like, yeah. So there's Jonathan. You know, well, I mean, I don't want to get too far into it, but there's Jonathan who basically looks like he usually looks.
Yeah.
You know, like black and white and gray. But then there's also some stuff that was drawn in a style that's actually kind of like how I used to draw in the 90s when I was doing black and white comics. So like there's a lot heavier shadows, like fully black shadows. You know, like there's no gray. It's all just like stark black and white. And you know, and then there's stuff that's like this screened down sort of like red, you know, stuff that's, you know, I don't know. It's interesting because they're all kind of colored in a different way.
Mhm.
Colored. I mean, they're all kind of the same color, but like they're all kind of rendered in a different way.
Right.
And it was interesting to do that sort of like black and white art style, that sort of 90s black and white art style, because it was like, oh yeah, like it takes a lot of planning ahead, you know, like
Mhm.
you got to really kind of think about your lighting scenario here before you really play with it. And it's easier to do it digitally than it was with the brush, but like um it was interesting because it's like, oh, I felt that sort of like annex to my brain open up and go like, all right, here's how we have to think about, you know,
Right.
black and white, you know, in here, as
They're like, "Hey
opposed to
Xander, you remember how you used to do this?"
yeah, yeah, yeah. Hey, buddy, you know, like you used to really think about sort of like chiaroscuro, as they say, but yeah, like and it was hard, or you know, it was hard, but it was neat to sort of think about it and go like, oh, wow, I didn't know that was still in there, you know, like I kind of thought I'd forgotten all about it.
Right. Definitely. Well, Xander, I thank you for
Uh,
once again, of course, for doing this with me. Obviously, I cannot wait till March to see this finale come to fruition. Obviously, I'm probably going to DM you as soon as I read the issue and probably just leave
right. Yell at me.
exclamation exclamation point. That's pretty much.
Yeah, well, that's what I would expect.
That's the way I hope to expect. Now, will that actually be the thought? That's what I'm thinking right now. It might be something totally different.
Who knows? Yeah, I don't know. The die is cast though. I don't know. Whatever it is, whatever it's going to be. So
Yeah, I'll ask you this: do you expect a lot of people to basically reach out to you once that final issue comes out?
I hope it would be really nice if people, if people were
What
that
did
they
you
liked
do,
it. Yeah, well,
Xander?
hopefully not. Hopefully there's not too much of like, oh, you didn't do this thing or you didn't, fulfill this
Yeah,
promise.
I don't like that.
Whatever. There probably will be, who knows? But like, I do hope that people will sort of feel like, oh, this, it moved like that. That's the pacing and the ending. Those are my only priorities. Where it's just like I hope that people sort of feel like, oh, okay, like that. It tied up all the threads. That's important, but I also want it to flow. I want it to move. I want
Mhm.
people to get to that end and flip that page and go, oh, wow, that was really cool, or that was really surprising, or that was really gruesome, or
Absolutely.
yeah,
Well, Xander, I look forward to it. I hope that everybody out there listening, and hope that everybody out there that basically already put their order in for issue 8 is more than likely going to feel the same way.
yeah.
So, obviously, can't wait to see what you're doing in the future. That next project, definitely for everybody out there. If you had had a chance to read Sleep, I implore you, you will be knocked out of your socks. Just like I did reading every single issue where I was like totally going berserk. Issue 6, I think issue 5 and issue 6 probably definitely just like put me on my ass for a little bit, to where I had to sit
Um,
there and think for a minute and try to figure out a way to, like, how the hell did he get this done? But this is what you did. This is what you did, and you asked us to do this.
I know. I know. Yeah. It's like, come along with me on an unpleasant journey.
That's perfect. See? All right. So,
All
Xander,
right.
thank you once again. It's a
Thank you, James.
it's always a pleasure talking to you.
Absolutely.
Definitely can't wait to see what you're doing in the future, as well as seeing not only our reaction to what you're doing, but what your reaction is to how we're going to be feeling in March.
Right. Yeah. I may go into hiding. We'll see. Who knows? Who knows?
All right. So for everybody here at the Facts Project, James Boyce, Zander Cannon, Sleep. Check out the series now with Image Comics. It's on issue 7. Issue 8 drops at the beginning of March 4th. So go
I
out.
think that's right.
Yeah, March 4th. So get out there and get that. We will see you guys next time. So we are out.